Hi, my name is Natalie Epstein. I'm a PhD student at Harvard Business School, and I'm gonna be presenting school choice in Chile. So let me start by explaining how the system works. So there is 36% of schools are public, which means they're administered by the government and they only receive public funding. Then we have 55% of schools which are subsidized. That means they receive public funding, but also families pay on top of that. And then 9% of the schools are private, which means they only receive funding from privates or the families. So in this work, we only focus on public and subsidized schools, so schools that receive public funding. And for those schools, the admission process was fully decentralized, meaning each family had to go to the school to apply. And the admission requirements were varying across schools. So you can have FIFO, you can have tests, interviews, like any process in each school. And also quality was very different across schools. So that generated a lot of challenges. Here you can see families protesting for less segregated schools or less selection in the schools. And then on the bottom, you can see families queuing to get a seat in a school or even sleeping outside a school to get a seat. So in 2015, and in all these contexts, the new school inclusion law is enacted. And this law has three main parts. So first, it forbids for-profit corporation administering schools. It also forbids co-payments from families when the school has public funding. And last, it forbids discrimination in the admission decision process. So we here focus on this third point, and what this new admission process, this generated a new admission process, which means that schools cannot select students with arbitrary rules anymore, and that the priorities for accepting students are defined by law. So the system basically guarantees equal treatment of equals. So what we did, we developed the assignment mechanism to solve this problem. Here we collaborated with Mineduc, which is the Ministry of Education in Chile. Here, besides giving students the best school that we can, so that the best school that the system can give them, we had two other objectives. So one was assigning families together, so assigning students to the same school as their siblings, and also treating priority groups and quotas or minority reserves in a way that made sense for what the law was aiming for. So in 2018, we served about 207,000 students. And from those, 60%, or almost 60%, got assigned to their top choice. So some main features and contributions here is the system here runs nationwide and in every level. So it runs throughout the country and from pre-K to 12th grade. It also has two rounds. So here I'm talking mainly about the first round, which is the biggest one. But for students who don't get a school, we do a second round. And then if still there are people that didn't get a school, they are assigned to the closest school with available seats. And I'll talk a bit more about this in a minute, but we adapt the deferred acceptance algorithm so that we deal with maximizing the probability that families are assigned together. And we also deal with overlapping types in the quotas so that we still get a stable matching. So let me deep dive in the algorithm itself. So here we start with the deferred acceptance algorithm proposed by Gale and Shapley. And here we run the system throughout every level sequentially. So we start in 12th grade, and this is important when we get to the family part. So we start in 12th grade, and then we go throughout each level until pre-K. We also have priorities. So if you have a sibling in the school, you get the highest priority. If you have a parent working in the school, you get the second highest priority. And if you were a former student in the school and you want to come back, you get the third priority in the school. And what we basically do here is we break ties within each group. And that's kind of the equal treatment of equals. So if you have a sibling, you have priority, but there's no other way of discriminating one student over the other. On top of these, we have this guaranteed enrollment feature. So what we do here is, because we run the system in every level, most students already have a school and they only want to switch to one they like better. And this means that they can apply in the system, and if they get assigned to a school they like more, we use their previous seat to assign another student. But if they don't get assigned to a new school, they for sure remain in their current school. So we manage seats in a very efficient way. Yeah, so then we have the quotas, which is one of the main things in this model. So we have three types of quotas, one for low-income students, and that's a 15% of seats in every level in every school. Then we have 2 seats per class reserved to students with disabilities. And we have a percentage that varies across schools and levels, but is reserved to academically high-performing students. And the main thing here is that a student can belong to any of these types, so more than one. And we know that in cases that we count the student as belonging to more than one type, there's no guarantee of having a stable matching, which was one of the main objectives here as well. So what we do to solve for that is we do an assignment to seat types. So basically the student only counts in the seat type he entered. So if a student is, for example, low income and has a disability, but he entered in a low income seat, then another student with disabilities would use that seat. And then the matching we get is stable regarding that specific contract to seat types. And okay, going now to the family part, we have the family application, which is basically families stating to the system that they want to prioritize being assigned together. And what we do in those cases is, once the older student in the family gets assigned to a school, we take the younger student and update his preferences so that he now prefers as his first choice the school where his older sibling got assigned to. So that increases the chances that they get assigned together. And that's the reason why I said running the levels sequentially is important in the setting. And the last part that we add to this algorithm is the tie-breaking rule. So we do a multi-tie-breaking rule, and that's by law, because the law states that every school can do their own lottery, and we understand that as being a multi-tie-breaking rule. But we order families, not students. So we break ties between families, and then we preserve that lottery in each level, so that we have an order in each level for each student. Let me go now to the results. So one very important thing here in the implementation of this process has been implementing it gradually. We started in 2016 with only one region. You can see the green part, that's the Chilean map, and you can see the green part is the one region we started with. It was only 3,500 students. And each year we have been adding more regions and more levels to the problem, so that this year it was, so here I'm focusing on 2018, so 208,000 students. Last year it was almost 500,000 students. And this year, 2020, students, I think, are going to be applying now. It's going to be even more than that, because we're adding even more levels to that last region. And that has allowed us to gain a lot of insights in the process and improve some parts of the implementation, and teach families how to use it. So it's been a long process. And regarding results, here we can see that in 2018, almost 60% of students got assigned to their first preference, and about more than 80% got assigned to some of their preference. And that last bar means that only 9% didn't get a school in the first round. And if you consider the whole process of the 2 rounds, only, I think it's 1% that year that got assigned to a school by distance. Now, if we want to see how do the quotas perform, in the first bar, we can see that students belonging to the low income quota perform better. So in that quota, more than 85% of students get one of their preferences. So the blue and light blue parts of the bar. And then if you see the third bar, so that's students that don't belong to any quota, you have that only like 77 or 78% of them get assigned to some preference. So the quota is actually improving the results for students that belong to these quotas or reserved seats. And lastly, I want to show some results here regarding families. So here what we do is we conduct 10,000 simulations in 4 different scenarios. So we run the algorithm as if we didn't have our updating preference algorithm, and if we were running the system with type breakings by student, and that assigns only 53% of families together. And then we can see, I don't know if you see my mouse, but we can see that if we do update preferences, we increase from 53% of families together to 62% of families together. And then if we do lotteries by family, we increase from 53 to 57. And also doing both, which is our real setting, it increases that number further up to 66%. So we show also in theory that these two things do increase the probability that families are assigned together. And just to conclude, I have just showed how we changed this very inefficient system to a centralized system which runs nationwide and in every level. We do this in a very innovative way. So we deal with families, we deal with priorities, we deal with quotas. And we can overall see how the decision admission shifted from the schools who were selecting their students to the families that can now choose in a centralized way which school to go. And we have had high participation of families, and overall families agree that the system is simpler and very useful. So thank you.